While we are waiting a couple of minutes, everything is already online on Kiros. Kiros was activated a week ago, more or less. So everything should be already on Kiro, including today's lectures slides. So you can just download it. You have today's lectures slides. By the way, a little bit more in programming. This will be our new classroom. Okay, so at least you don't have to switch between different parts. Yeah, that's something. Not much. That's something. The maximum I was able to obtain. As always, I have to remind you that I'm a contract professor, so I don't really carry any kind of weight within the organization itself. So I'm quite happy. I just had this occasion. So for the next lecture, we will just move between the two. I'll try very hard to end the first one a quarter of an hour before the ending, and we will start at 1:30 and end up precisely at 3 o'clock, more or less. So you have 3/4 of an hour to have a lunch. I know it's not much, it's the maximum flexibility I can give you, because we can't really start early than 11:15, because some of you have classes before 11, so I have to allow a couple of minutes for moving. Next two Tuesdays, so 14th and 21st will be double lecture, normal. And I will not be here, unfortunately, because I have another event in Luxembourg, I think, on October 28th. Time will be more than enough to come back. I've got a flight, so I should be fine here at 1:30 in October 28th. So the morning lesson of October 28th isn't to be done. And I think we can start a little bit early. I'll try to end a little bit early. So, let's start from the last couple of slides of our previous class. This is the definition we will use within our course about reputation. It's not the best one. It's not the only one. You can find out several different definitions. This is the easiest to use for the kind of approach we are using right now. So, reputation is a shared and or collective perception. It's not about reality, it's a perception. About something, an organization, a brand, a product, a person. We can talk about personal reputation if you're talking about some VIP or some actor, etc. We can talk about a brand reputation, iPhone, okay, Pixel 9, Pixel 10, a single product. And we talk about a brand. It may be different, okay? I could have, theoretically speaking, a good reputation about a brand and a bad reputation about a single product. Let's come back to consumer products. I may have an outstanding reputation about some cosmetics brand, L'Oreal, and a bad reputation about one single product. So yeah, I love L'Oreal, but these mascara sucks. No problem at all. And it could be vice versa. I could have an awful reputation about a single brand. I don't know, Lidl. Okay, Lidl is a hard discount for poor people. But several products that are found in Lidl are quite on par or even better than the same product you can have in different shops. So it may be different between people, products, and brand within the same organization. I could love a brand and hate the CEO. I could love the CEO and hate the brand or the products. There is a lot of spill between those different subjects. So if I usually love a brand, but they take a CEO that I awfully despise, it may be that the brand reputation is a little bit less important on my scale. It may be that I love a brand, but after 1, 2, 3, 4 different generations of the same product that fails miserably, I may think less of the brand itself. Apple, correct pronunciation, is one of the foremost examples of this kind of representation. You may love one peculiar product, but after a long series of fails, you may lose some sort of reputation about the brand. And then a lot of different subjects come in, for example, nostalgia. This brand is not what it used to be, okay? If you think a little bit about this brand is not what it used to be, is a powerful statement. In both ways. It's a powerful statement because it doesn't really matter how much history I have in a brand. The reputation can be and is normally subject to the passing of time. So it may be degraded in time if several different products do not meet my expectations. It may be on the other part. You may get a very old brand that has some sort of very, very high historical value. So something like my aunt, my mother, my grandmother used to use this brand, but it's not really on par anymore. And this brand has the real opportunity of coming back in fashion, because you still have that kind of lingering effect on the brand that can be taken into another exploit, another era of the brand itself. So that is the intrinsic value of the brand when maybe long-lasting names or historical brands are acquired. The value within the brand remains, even if the last few years or few products are a complete disgrace. Many different venture capitalists or many different funds could buy a brand, an old brand that is not really of economical value right now, that has product that sucks, that do not really have any kind of followership right now, but has the historical potential of being again on the waves, again trendy. And you see several of those many times over. Labubu, okay, used to be a brand almost unknown, and it can be taken into another kind of reputational surge, for the bad or for the evil. Everything depends on you. But right now, after a couple of exercises we did last time, you may face a little bit, you may grasp a little bit more about that. When we talked about German cars, okay, they are dependable. No, they are not anymore, but you still have that lingering sound in it. So even old-fashioned brands, even very old brands, even brands that do not really shine anymore, are capable of coming back to the potential. And that is quite important, being able to sort of evaluate the intrinsic values of the brand itself, monitoring for the values, the old values of brand itself, is often quite useful. You may end up working for a company that used to be a top player isn't that anymore, but maybe they have a little bit more money to invest on a new version of the brand that still lingers on all those perceived historical values. Then, reputation is created, but what is said about it, it's not really what the brand says. Of course, what the brand does and says contribute in a very substantial manner on the reputation that is created, but it's not the metric itself. It's not about what I say. It's about what you perceive of what I've said. It's what sticks on you, on the several different arguments a brand can have. I may use, I don't know, once again, cosmetic brands. I may despise a brand, find out that there is a new product that even if is from that peculiar brand I do not really love, has something new more, and I perceive that not really but what the brand is saying. It's not about launching a new product. It's not about a new PR release. It's not about the advertisement. It's about your inner cycles. I think, sorry, I'm using cosmetic products because it's the easiest one. Why? Because it has, normally cosmetics brands have a lot of legacy reputation, so a lot of meanings, a lot of qualities that you automatically attribute to a brand, and a relatively cheap product. So a mascara is, I don't know, $50, $30, $100. The same applies to each and every single product. But you know, if I'm talking about a car with one of the guys here, or a motorcycle, we are still talking about a lot of money to be spent. So just referral isn't enough for a complete decision. But if you, I'm sorry, I'm using cliche. I know about that. And by the way, very sexist cliches. Bear on me. But if a brand that used to be Starry, L'Oreal, or I don't know, Lancôme, you normally despise the brand because most of it is old-fashioned, is something your mother used to use, is something that is not really smart anymore. But if several of your friends, several of the people you follow online, several of your social friends, so people that maybe you know in person, but you do not meet them day by day, if they start to say, well, I tried the new product, well, it's quite fine, yeah, it's starry, it's fantastic, etc. When several of of the people you are in contact with, even digitally, share some sort of perception, you are keen to try that product. Even more so if you find that product used by someone of your peers. And by peers, I mean people you meet normally. Is the classic, well, what a nice mascara you have today. Oh, you know, it's this one. I did really despise them because it was my mother's or my grandmother's, but this one is quite perfect, etc. You are bound to make a decision, in this case a purchase decision, not really focused on the quality of the brand itself. You haven't really tried it, okay? It's not a try and buy. Okay, you may end up in try and buy, but it's almost residual into the decision making right now. It used to be very strong. Women used to go to shops like Sephora, etc., to try and buy. It's not there anymore. It's not my opinion. It's just data. You buy that online. You find the best value for market. You find out the offerings all around, and you purchase it just on the basis of what is said by other people, not the brand itself. As a matter of fact, you are almost blind on most communications from brand, you do not perceive within your social circle. I may spend billions in advertising, in proposing you some sort of new product, but you are totally blind on the brand itself. It's a perverse and quite funny mechanism. And if you're not really keen to look into a brand, even the mere exposure effect, that means seeing that brand everywhere, do not contribute in a significant matter on your purchase decision, unless you have some sort of, technically speaking, social proof about the brand itself. And it's, technically speaking, it's funny, because people do not really see that brand. There are several different studies in which a constant population of people is exposed to messages. Something like you take all people coming here in university, and I want women between 22 and 24. I expose them to the same kind of message. I use huge billboards all around, and people are blind on the mere exposure. If I ask you, how many times have you seen this product? You will end up saying, oh, never seen in my life. And one of the beautiful examples we gave to one of our customers, it was an international brand. It was me videotaped during a session, an inquisitive session, so a panel of people that were brought in for having an opinion. And I had the billboard of the products itself behind me, and they told me, in face, never seen that before, never seen. But even on billboard, have you ever seen that, I don't know, on a billboard that said, no, nothing at all. And it was physically on my back, you know? It's not about being stupid or being inattentive. It's always about overcharging your imagination, overcharging. It's about giving you too many options. So, reputation is not technically derived from the mere exposure and from exposure and from knowing about something. Is a joint effort between knowing something exists and having social proof. Technically speaking, aside from a small number of items that you can purchase, the word of mouth, the social proof, is far more important than the mere exposure. Exposure is a sort of another social proof. So if I'm already... Oh, by the way, there is another fun effect of the mere exposure that is contaminated with mere exposures. That means if I talk you about that, if we meet in that class that I was telling you about, that panel I was telling you about, when I met the same panel 30 days later, they told me, oh yeah, we saw you started a campaign. We see a lot of different campaigns on the bus, on the tramway, on the subway, etc. Funny fact, nothing changed between my first and second meeting, nothing at all. It's just, it's called the red car effect. If you are trying to buy a new car in red, you always see that kind of car everywhere. If you are bound to buy a specific model of the car, you see that car everywhere. You constantly find that. Why? Because I have elicited your attention on something specific. So it's not about not creating advertising. I'm not telling you that advertising is not useful. Advertising is useful. Advertising is sort of necessary for most consumer products, but it's about social proofing. If I just do advertising and I do not break some sort of bubble you're living within, I'm not getting any kind of attention. So, is said about each and every stakeholder. Next lecture will be about stakeholders, but right now stakeholder is sort of homogeneous groups of people with common intent, investors, investor relation, HR and my employers, customers, suppliers, etc. It may be different. It may be that peculiar product you are buying, that peculiar mascara is almost unknown to you. You just take the cheaper one, that's it, or the no-brand one, but is quite known for the distributor. Sephora knows my brand very well. If I ask you which kind, no, it's, I can't do that with mascara because every single product is incredibly on point. I think I can ask every one of you for different products and you perfectly know the name of each one of them. But if I ask you which kind of, I don't know, which kind of detergent you are using at your home, for, I don't know, which kind of dishwater detergent you are using, you may not have any kind of information right now. Okay, you may not. But that brand is quite known to Esselunga or Auchan. Why? Because it makes 20% of the sold items, okay? So it is known by one stakeholder. If I'm the company making that dishwasher brand, I'm not known by the final customer, that just by whichever is the offer right now, but I'm quite known to Auchan, the distributor, because it makes a lot of their revenues. There may be companies you do not really know about, but your municipality knows very well. Why? Because they are, for example, they are a B2B company. You don't know anything about them, but they make up a lot of pollution in your municipality. So they are potential polluters, sorry. So they are known to the municipality and not even known. You may end up into finding out that that peculiar chemical company is 2 blocks away from you, only if there is some sort of accident. Okay, there is a fire in this chemical plant 2 blocks from you. You didn't even know there was a chemical company 2 blocks from you, but it's quite known to the municipality. It may be known because they just employ a bunch of people. So you've got a municipality in which there are 20,000 living residents, but there are 5,000 people working in that factory. That is quite important on revenues point of view, on road trips and traffic point of view. You have to create larger roads because you have 5,000 people going and coming back, but the residents may not know about that. So different stakeholders may have different reputations. Some of them may even not have a reputation about you. Think about Monsanto. When I told you about Monsanto, you eat 90% of the vegetables, more or less, you eat are from Monsanto. You don't give a shit about that unless something bad happens. So, stakeholder-wise, you may have completely different reputations, and you may end up not talking with most of the stakeholders. It's not about, I've got a map of my stakeholders and I have to address each and every single one. It may, and normally that is the case, it may be that my company do not communicate with one or more stakeholders. That is not something to be ashamed of. That is not a problem. If I'm a B2B business, my interest into B2C is almost non-existent. Almost. It may be sort of existent if I'm a B2B2C. Power plants, and no, how do you call that? Your air conditioning brand, okay? Air conditioning is something strange. No, well, maybe not. A few years ago, air conditioning was not really known to the public because you asked to your installer which brand was best, and you didn't really bought any kind of appliance yourself. Right now, you quite know about that. Maybe the portable ones because you are doing your math, etc. But the brand itself does marketing on the installer, not really on the final brand. They may end up looking at the final customer when the market is a little bit higher in expectations. For example, I may do a lot of B2C communication about my air conditioning split being the nicest Samsung with the design splits you place in your home. But because the final customer knows right now there are several beautiful ones and maybe they want the beautiful one, but they are not purchasing it. They are asking for that to the installer itself. Oh, I'm quite nice about this, I don't know, this Toshiba one. But I saw an advertisement about a very beautiful one from Samsung. Do you know about that? Okay. Or it may end up that you will never know about anything and you are not targeted by anyone and anything. For example, in Monsanto. Or something, a company dealing with screws. I only make screws. You do not purchase it. And even if you have to purchase a small package of screws, you will not know anything about the different makers. You are not searching online for the most known and precise screw type. You will not know about that. And you do not want the titanium ones made by Tony Stark. You just want a fucking screw. That's it. So, you may end up not communicating also to several different stakeholders or communicating to them in several strange different ways. For example, Monsanto does a lot of customer-facing communication, not about the product, about sustainability, sponsoring, sponsoring reforestation programs, sponsoring awareness programs into GMOs. They spend a lot of money into lobbying about GMOs. Why? Because one of the problems you may face up is that you despise GMOs. By the way, almost everything that you eat has been genetically modified. I'm not joking. Take a look at what carrots used to be. Something like these, and carrots are supposed to be purple, okay? Not red, not orange, purple. It was a marketing stunt making them orange. Or mice. Mice used to be the revenue you normally had a century ago about mice was a small fraction of what right now you are getting. So they do a little bit of indirect persuasion about you. Every time you see a TV program, a nice, a nice effort, a nice organization, a nice event about GMOs are not bad for your health, etc. Most of the time, If you take a look at the sponsor of the initiative, you will find those brands. So those are customer-facing actions, but not in the product itself. It's about convincing you of some sort of vision of the world, Weltanschauung. And that is normally called lobbying. By the way, they are trying to lobby you even to shush you out, to silence you. If I open up a new plantation near you using GMOs products, I may be facing a lot of different controversy on general population, scared about GMOs, etc. If I'm quite good into narrating how GMOs are good for you, how GMOs are the new normal, etc., you will end up having less and less concerns about the subject, and so they benefit from this kind of point of view. But it's not about communicating with you. Why am I making a lot of fuss about this? Because normally when you are trained about communication, director of communication, one of the first and foremost errors you normally do is we have to communicate to everyone. No, most of the time you don't. Most of the time, the largest amount of work in your being a manager, a communication manager, is perfectly knowing to who you have to talk, to who you do not have to talk. And if you mix it up, you normally mess it up. There is I can't remember if it's the next one or lecture or the one or later on. There is an entire lecture about fails. And what is normally beautiful about fails and epic fails from brands is that each and every single fucking one is derived by just one error. You either forget about a stakeholder or communicate the wrong thing to this stakeholder. So you either forget you're talking about someone, you're doing a communication saying something like, not for faggots, and you have 25% of your brand users that are people in the LGBTQ community. Not joking, real example. Yeah, I will show you a couple of them. Or you think you are talking with parents, but instead there are a lot of non-parents that are making a fuss about that. A family-friendly, a family-friendly restaurant with lots of games to play and a lot of animation for children. Okay, I don't give a shit about staying in that sort of rabbit cage with children. Okay, if there are children, it's not my place. Last one, it's not just about stakeholder involved into generating content, it's everyone involved in content generation and spreading. Why? There are no influencers at all if there isn't a user base that is taking those messages and propagating them. The power of every single influencer is not really based on the audience itself. It's about the audience that reads, acknowledge, interact, and share that kind of content. If you are not commenting on some trap artist, it's always difficult to say artist when you say trap singer. Sorry. I've got preconceptions. And if you're talking about a rapper, for the bad, for the good and for the bad, just publishing thing is not enough. Take one of my customers for the Italian-speaking people, Federico. Fedez is quite a controversial figure because it usually does a lot of good music, a lot of bad music, and a lot of very controversial statements, let's put it in that way, just because he's a client. He's a genius and an idiot, and the overlapping within the two is quite substantial, and I love him, he's a friend of mine. So it's not about what Federico says, it's not about their post. It's about thousands of different newspapers launching, taking his statements and relaunching that. It's about people shouting and arguing. It's about people talking about that. If someone is just communicating something, it's not enough for creating a reputation. It has to be a discourse in which you feel to be part. And by the way, you have to feel to be part in a conversation, even if you are just liking, commenting, or resharing content, because you are using your platform, a smaller one, maybe a few hundreds, few thousand people, but you are contributing directly to the message that is spread, even if you just like or comment or reshare, because the awareness rises, the algorithm prefers content with a lot of interaction, and the more you interact with the content, the more the content itself is widespread. So when you do, for example, crisis management, your main aim is computing or re-elaborating the statements themselves. Matteo killed someone. No, it's not true. But the most important part is not about the statement, it's about convincing you into not spreading false rumors. Because the thing that I fear most is not the rumor that is shared, is the virality of the rumor itself. So if Federico says Matteo is a serial killer, but I convince all of you that that is just bullshit, you will not propagate that message. And most of the time, that is the most efficient way of doing crisis management about a stuff, an issue. Ho perso di nuovo, eccolo qua. So, reputation is a shared or collective perception about a brand, a person, a product that is created by what is said. La reputazione non te la fai, te la fanno. By each and every single stakeholder involved in content generation or spreading. Easy. So, mapping reputation and working with reputation is finding out which perception. There are more of them. There are several stakeholders, so there are more perceptions. There are. Knowing what is said, so which are the narratives, which are the point of views, which are the subjects, which are the arguments. Pro and adverse, okay? In favor or adverse. Knowing what is in every single stakeholder mind, it's called framing. So which is the frame in your mind. If I just take her and I ask her, are GMOs good or bad? No, GMOs are good. Okay, that is a frame. I'm not even asking her which GMOs. If we are talking about, I don't know, viruses and antibiotics, or we are talking about vegetables, or we are talking about animals. We are not talking about that. It's just in her mind, GMOs are good, intrinsically good or bad. If I ask her about GMOs, maybe she says, no, GMOs are bad, no matter what. Okay? Both of those statements are false. Both of those statements are equally false. There are good GMOs, there are bad GMOs. But in their mind, their frame is GMO good. Why? A lot of different parts. GMOs are bad. Why? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. if I want to change your mind, and that's my line of business, I get paid for changing people's opinions, I will not address to GMO is good or GMO is bad, because those are elaborations in your mind. It's not facts, it's not figures. I have to find out the underlying statements that your mind recites in your back. Because behind her GMOs is bad, there are two different meetings she had with people she knows. There are those 3-4 different phrases that her mother used to tell her, or her ex-boyfriend used to tell her. And in her mind, there are a couple of different content creators online that has published 2-3 different stories. And in her mind, that is the concept. So if I'm able to provide adversarial statements for those underlying thoughts, I'm able to, first of all, change their trust in the statements. If I'm able enough to change the trust of the underlying statements, you find yourself in a peculiar state of mind, in a dichotomy in your mind. There are several different precise terms. We will see them, no problem at all. But you are in a position, and that happens quite often, in which you are not really sure that all the picture of yourself you have in your mind is coherent. And if I'm just able to spot out incoherence, your mind is fearing incoherence. Your mind is abhorring incoherence. In your mind, you are perfectly coherent about everything. That's false, okay? No one is coherent on everything. No one. So, if I'm able to make her feel incoherent, she will have to adapt. And normally in different steps. Not really GMOs are good, but GMOs are bad. Well, most of GMOs are bad. So, in a way of saying, the world it would be a more beautiful place if there were no GMOs. But GMOs are quite good in a very specific couple of things, of fields. Those fields in which they are good are on the same level than the bad. The next issue is, well, maybe they are good in a couple of different parts that are a little bit more important than the bad ones. So her point of view will shift into most of GMOs are bad, but some of them, unfortunately, are useful. Next step, some of them are unfortunately necessary, so it's a necessary evil. And a step and the step above that is, well, I despise a lot of them, but they are sort of a necessity. So we must just regulate them closely, not really forbidding them. And then I won. Because my client doesn't really want her to feel that GMOs are good. No client wants to. My client just wants to refer the judgment to a third party they can pollute, they can convince. So, GMOs are inherently bad, but unfortunately a necessity. So, we have to create a strict regulation, but strict regulation is not something she does every single day. So, she will lobby for a strict regulation. I've got another couple of people working with the regulator to take the most corporate-friendly point of views in regulation. So I just won. By the way, most of the time, you do not need to change people's view from bad to evil or from evil to bad. You just have to move them to not inherently good or bad, and just swindle their attentions. So it's not really so bad, because there are a couple of different fields in which it is sort of a necessity. If we want to survive as human beings, it's sort of a necessity. If I'm operate as a corporation in those couple of things, I already won. I don't want to convince you anymore. Because it's difficult, because I don't want any kind of fundamentalists in both ways. I just want to bring people into a common ground in which, okay, it's bad, not so bad. There are things that are far more evil than these. Her concentration, not because you're limited, but her concentration as a human being is a limited amount, so she will just move to more important matters. That's it. I just neutralized an enemy. Yep.
I understand what you're saying, but sometimes when you're trying to convince the client to not think that, sometimes the client knows you're just trying to convince them because of reputation. So I mean, maybe with vaccines, for example. Maybe, I don't know, Pfizer or something like some brand of this one who creates vaccines like COVID. They're trying to get on your mind to tell you like, no, that's not like this, and sometimes they're just trying to convince you because of reputation. So that's only like doing the opposite thing.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, it's called a backfire effect. When I try, why am I not pushing her to like vaccines or like GMOs? Because the more if she is strongly biased into one of the extremes, any single try I do to swindle them too much, her too much, will result in what is normally called in cognitive psychology backfire effect. She will answer with violence, and I mean violence, verbal violence, violent efforts. So she will spend 2 different afternoons just on writing comments. She will become an activist. Okay, technically speaking, backfire effect is the effect in which you radicalize people. So I'm not really trying to convince her. I'm trying to give her different narratives. And if you think about vaccines, we worked a lot during COVID-19, a lot. Pharmaceutical companies, no pharmaceutical companies ever tried telling you that vaccines are good. No one. They all try to convince you in different silos, depending on the brand. A couple of different narrations. I'll forget a couple of them, but a couple of narrations. A necessary evil. So you will get counter effects. You will get side effects that are statistically speaking far less than road accidents. Far less than people falling on the streets from the sideway. Okay, one of them. Another one, it's about protecting people that cannot do vaccines. So it's herd immunity. So you have to feel bad if you do not vaccinate for the other people. For small children. For pregnant women, okay, so for vulnerable sides of the population. So you feel a bastard for thinking that you will not do that.
Yeah, because they made you think that you were being selfish.
Yeah. It's exactly that. It was the selfish effect, making people feel selfish. Or, for different brands, one technology was superior from the other, because you just have, when you have 3 different brands dominating the market, most of the time you do not need to convince them to vaccinate. You just need to convince them you are the lesser evil between the 3. And that is why I was telling you, it's not about convincing both of them. It's just taking the underlying frame, the narrations, the mental narrations you have, because every single one of you has several different phrases about every single subject that normally you repeat in your mind. It's just altering some of them, making you feel ashamed, selfish, stupid, okay, and convincing you. So technically speaking, you are perfectly in the right point of view, and that is why, for example, counteracting disinformation, giving you facts, is bullshit.
Yeah.
You don't want truth. You are not capable of truth. You do not have the means, the mental means, the preparation, the facts, the data and facts.
Yeah, you just have some information that it's going around social media and stuff.
I don't know if you were here in the first lecture.
No.
The first lecture started with, I'm not a good person. Okay, I'm not. Take in account, from your point of view and your perspective, I'm not one of the good guys. Not at all. So, it may be unethical, what I'm telling you, but it's exactly what is happening. So it's far more important for me to teach you how things work than showing myself as a virtuous person, that I am not, by the way. So, and last one, you will, the difference between, the main difference between communication and reputation or crisis management is that communication talk with everyone. Reputation do not talk with everyone. If you are talking with 2 or 3 different stakeholders in the same way, you are an awful brand manager and reputation manager. Awful one. You are talking with different stakeholders. Technically speaking, this is quite old. During all our course, we will stick to the definition of stakeholder, but just take in account that no one right in his mind is just working with the 7 dimension of reputation and stakeholder. It's just an oversimplification you give in the class. Normally you work with different tribes, with coherent group of peoples. For example, in activists, you have several different activist groups based on their frame. Frame analysis, the frames mapping, is a sort of akin of the personas. If you ever met personas when you do persona path, personas is in marketing the sort of exemplification of the standard user. You have the mom persona, young woman in her 30s with 1 or 2 children. You have the manager persona, the CEO of the company said, okay, personas exemplified. You do not want the common demographical traits. You want the mind discourses, okay? You want a list of statements that are true in the mind of that person, that group. Most of them are bullshit. But please take in account that in every single field you have an opinion on, if you write down those statements, most of them are bullshit. Most of them. Unless you hold a very in-depth PhD in every single subject, most of what you think is bullshit. Most of it. There are useful bullshits, bad bullshits, but most of them are bullshit. Or uninformed bullshit derived from a specific time frame and geographical frame. You are quite active, I presume, on the Palestinian cause right now, okay? There are at least 4 active conflicts all around the world that killed at least 10 times children than Palestinians. But you don't give a shit about them, okay? It's not about children, not at all. It's not about deaths, not at all. Not really. It's just about what is posh, what is trendy in those different parts, and which conflicts around the world goes in the mainstream. You don't give a shit about everything. If I talk to you about Darfur, if I talk to you about conflicts in North Africa, etc., you don't give a shit about that. And that has nothing to do on the fact that Israel is right now doing a genocide in Palestine. Okay, it's not about not acknowledging that. And we can say that there are official documents for the United Nations defining what is happening there, genocide. It's not my opinion anymore. But it has nothing to do about that. I can recite, right, on top of my mind right now, I can recite to you at least 10 different conflicts in which the number of children killed are at least sevenfold more than Palestine. And you don't give a shit about that. So it's about perception. It's not about reality. You are not equipped as a human being to know reality. But not because you are stupid, not because you are uninformed. It's not that I know 10 of them, you know one of them, so you are stupid, I'm intelligent. It's not about that. It's about the amount of mental resources you have to understand reality, and you have to look at a few degrees of reality. Of course, the more informed you are, the larger your perception goes, and going between 2 degrees and 3 degrees, it may sound a little bit more, because we are not talking about going from 2 to 20, but please take in mind that moving from 2 to 3 is 50% more of perspective. So, and as I told you before, I'm not a good person. So, you can report about that I'm not a good person, etc. They don't give a shit. They know about that. So, we have a couple of things to say. We have almost an hour. No, a little bit less than 1 hour. So I'll go a little bit faster. We have to talk about several different parts of corporate reputation that you may not think about on top of your minds. So something that happens when you have a good or bad reputation. And we have to talk about why we are talking about mainly online reputation when we're talking about reputation. It wasn't so. If I had to do this lecture to you 10 years ago, most of our lecture will be about newspaper and convincing journalists. So bribing different journalists in different parts of the world with events, with PR, with gifts, etc., just to take a bunch of them that were close to your narrative for personal convenience and talking about that. It was easier 10 years ago. Right now it's about the web, and we will know about that. First of all, once again, it's not about reality. It's not about what you say. There is a substantial differentiation between reputation and brand management. Brand management communication is what you want people to think about you and how you want them to relate to you. So, if we are talking about always, the advertisement about pads, women pads we saw in a previous lecture, you want to think that the brand always is close to women, close to their personality. It may stick on you, may not stick on you. If you do a lot of campaigns about Happy Meals and Ronald McDonald and a safe space for children in McDonald's, you are trying very hard to make your customer think that McDonald's is a beautiful place for families and children. And once again, there's a place in hell for parents taking children to McDonald's. I will never be paid by McDonald's, whatever. I will end up my life poor, but I don't give a shit about that. So brand is what you are striving people to remember about you. Striving is the L'Oreal mascara everywhere. Just use our mascara. This is the best mascara. It will give you one linear kilometer of eyelashes. You will win the heart of every single man. That is quite easy, you know. We are men. We have a finite amount of blood that we have to divide between our brain and our penis. Whenever you move that, behavior. The more you think about that, the more it stands to reason. So, that's fine. That is what I want you to understand. Some of that will stick on you. Maybe not in a rational point of view, but in a subliminal point of view. In one of those phrases, both of them have in their mind, okay? I will win this boy hearts using eyelashes. No. No. And normally, the only people that look at your eyelashes are other women. It's something about going to gym, you know? The man going to gym, trying to look very impressive on women, and no one of the women like very muscular men, but you will get a lot of compliments from men. Okay? So, I'm using a lot of cliché, not because they are true, because they are evocative in your mind, okay? So branding, when you study branding in university, when you will strive to do brand positioning, etc., it's about placing things in memory, and most of them on a subconscious level. Audi, boom, boom. There was this huge campaigning commercials that associated a sound to a brand. Audi used to be toom, toom. And Intel used to do a lot of campaigns on sound and brands. So something about being in top of we will see about that. It's about getting top of your mind. Reputation is what people think about you, what lingers on them. There is a superimposition, there is a common part. There is, obviously, people may talk about your campaign, okay? People may start to talk about your brand because you commercialized that. The new, I don't know, the new Labubu, or the new, you know about Labubu because you see Labubu all around, but because most of the newspaper are talking about the long queues on the shop, okay? Scarcity. They just give a couple of items for having a long queue. By the way, I will not talk about the Labubu. I'm not referring to Labubu. And even if I were, I would not be allowed to say that. So I'm not talking about Labubu. But you buy people in queue. You know about that. You pay people to stay in queue to buy an item for hours. You pay them just for having press on site, taking pictures and creating the news. So if I want to end up on newspapers, I can either purchase directly from different magazines, either purchase the article, or easier and far less costly, paying a couple $1,000 to 40 different people. I come here, I enroll all of you, giving you 2,000 euros, 200 euros for staying in queue all the morning, for getting them, and asking and inviting the press to see people standing in queue. Okay, so there is a lingering part. Most of that is constructive. What bleeds are behaviors, attitudes, actions, etc., that influence what goes up and down. So, come on. Perception and reality have some sort of overlap, but it's just an overlap. Perception, the reality should be the truth about company policy, company practice, company procedure, the system, the environmental consciousness, the real one, okay? Reality. There are several different brands you love that are quite a scam. For example, a very lovable brand that has a lot of beautiful feelings around them. Who was the owner of IKEA? Never seen about them. Who is the CEO of IKEA? Never heard about them. Not at all. IKEA used to be owned by the Kamprad family. Ingvar Kamprad was the creator, and he was a quite known Nazi. In the real term, he was in favor of eugenetics, used to employ minor labor all around the world, and used to think there were different people that weren't really keen on being alive. They were just a waste of oxygen. That is the owner of IKEA. You don't give a shit about that. You think about IKEA. They don't make a fuss about the creator, the brand, the history. You know, a lot of different capitani d'azienda, founders, very known founders. Most of the brands sort of idealize their founders. IKEA will not. You don't know anything about that. You like a lot IKEA. IKEA is a non-profit. You know about that? It's a fake non-profit done just for giving all the owner of IKEA has the brand itself. They are paying a license to the brand owner, and IKEA is working as a non-profit organization that allows for a very, very lightweight administration of people and global resources, etc. You don't give a shit about that. So, perception is how a company is perceived by all stakeholders. In communication, in reputation, you have to work on this side. On communication, you have to work on this side. You don't give a shit about this. You just have to hide all the different parts that are not really brand safe. So you're striving to move on that side, striving very hard. Yep.
So you can't basically control what other people perceive because it's not like in our control, in my opinion. So besides the fact that we have to know like what other people think of our brand or our product, what is the use of studying reputation?
Of studying a reputation is about finding out which are the, you can control what people think. It's quite easy because people are normally stupid. Well, it's not about people being stupid. It's people have a limited amount of attention they can use. So the more you concentrate attention of different parts, and you do that even in lobbying. The tobacco lobbying for decades have strived to move the attention on different parts. So you can manipulate what people think. Not always. There are scandals. that is why journalism is so important, because journalists, more often than not, are able to just disclose those parts that are normally hidden, the left ones, but normally you can control it. And I will give you all the instruments to do that. Cognitive biases, how you perceive, semiotics, and normally studying a reputation is finding out two different parts. Is either finding out how to better convince people, and you can apply that in communication, in marketing, in lobbying, in geopolitics, no matter what. It's knowing the mechanism that create, modify, and increase or decrease reputation. And on the other part is mapping, finding out the values. So working in a way not to hinder reputation itself, but moving within the reputation itself. But for knowing how to move within that, you have to map it, know it, and moving. Thank you for the question, because it's all about risks. When you talk about reputation risk is, is this one. You get normal reputation when expectations meet reality, meet the experience. When the expectation you set forward meet the real experience you're getting, you get normal reputation, okay? So I tell you that you have 12 hours of batteries, you get 12 hours of battery, that's fine. I gave you some sort of expectation, you receive that kind of expectation, and that's fine. Twice as long lasting mascara. You try your mascara, you try the other one. It's not really twice as long, but your previous mascara wasn't there at all at 3 o'clock in the evening. The new one is still on you at 7 o'clock. That's fine, meeting the expectation. It's not about algebra, okay? It's not about finding out the minutes you find out. But if I set an expectation and you comply with the expectation, that's fine. If I set the expectation and you do not meet the expectation, I've got a reputation risk. What it means? I'm telling you, the new iPhone, 24 hours of battery life, okay? Asterisk. Small asterisk on the advertisement. If turned off and within any kind of connection. Fuck you. Technically speaking, that's fine. For marketing, on a marketing point of view, that is a perfectly acceptable tactic. And you see most of them, the fine prints, okay? In marketing, placing yourself as the 24-hour battery cellular phone is a marketing advantage. Even if the fine print doesn't really say so. Legally speaking, that's fine, because you told setting the expectation with Wi-Fi, with connection off and cellular phone turned off. Okay, that's fine. That is marketing. If you're a marketing specialist, that is perfectly suitable. Why you have to study reputation? Because if you study a little bit of reputation, you find out that you are with that advertising piece, you are acquiring a potential reputation risk. You know it will not meet those expectations. It may be that the press, the technical press, will tell something like, okay, it's not really 24 hours, it's 19 hours, that's fine. It may be that the press says something like, it was marketed as 24 hours, it doesn't last 2, it's just a scam. and you have to come up with all the reputational damage of those different statements. So you are generating missed expectation. Missed expectation means lowering overall reputation on time. If you go up missing expectations, you mark the Apple keynote, okay? A lot of fuzz. They don't give you a new Apple intelligence. Okay? And the value of the shares just drop. Is setting the expectations and managing expectations. There is another point around. If you say, I don't know, 20 hours of real usage battery life, okay, real usage means 2 hours of video, 4 hours of music, etc. And people use it and find that it's not really 20, it's 21 hours. It lasts even a little bit longer than the advertised part. It's not really good on marketing because you cannot really place yourself as the longest lasting battery of all different. So on a marketing point of view, if she's the reputation manager and her colleague is the marketing manager, they will fight about that. The marketing girl will tell something, oh, let's say 29 hours. The reputation manager says, not really. Let's make it 21. It's a little bit longer than the average. Not only that, but she is betting on people not finding out the truth. Most of the time, that's perfectly fine, okay? She is betting on another point of view. She is betting on the reviews. She is betting very hard on reviews, finding out that it's a little bit longer. Maybe she will elicit a little bit of reviews. She will talk, she will go on 10 different calls on different influencers saying, well, have you tried that? Have you noticed that we were a little bit more conservative on the expectation? And so she will end up having 10, 20 different reviews from influencer, magazine, etc., saying, oh, it's even a little bit better. So it's a continuous fight within the organization between marketing, the best in the world, and reputation. Well, better than state. Her approach will deliver a lot of potential sales in the short time, a lot more, with a lot of problems. That is the problem with different marketing managers. Every single marketing manager will strive very hard on short-term spikes. Why? Because normally they change the market manager. Once the curve goes down, you take another marketing manager. A reputation manager strive very hard for the next decade. So on a long-lasting relation on different stakeholders in building up reputation. So when you when your expectations exceed by a small part the expectation, when your performance exceed a little bit of the expectation, you have a reputation opportunity, building up. Here, you build up reputation. Here, you potentially lose reputation. By the way, both of them are potentials. So there are plenty of examples in which a marketing falsehood will deliver more sales, and no one will talk about it being a little bit swindling. Okay, because maybe normally you are quite accustomed to having brands that says 20 hours instead of 10. So maybe she is the winning one. Let's place this one as the longest battery life, and no one will tell anything about that. It may be then that she says, no, let's make it 20, and no one talk about it being 21. So it's a betting. There is no intrinsically better or worse strategy. But you have to take it in account. The important part of risk is not by mapping the risk itself, is on risk assumption. Managers have to know the potential risk and make a decision. There is a potential risk? Yes. Do we want to cope the risk in some way? I invest 1 million euros for changing batteries of people complaining. Okay, so you are complaining about that. I'm giving you a full free result. So she is the customer service representative, and you have a chat with her saying, no matter what, they will complain about battery life. You have 1 million euros to take the most vocals of them and changing the battery with another one, okay? So I'm taking a budget into coping the risk, so I'm preventing the risk by assigning resources to prevent the risk, or it's just take the assumption, I'll take the risk. But you have to know about the risk. Dealing with reputation is knowing the risk and handling the risk and battling with all colleagues for the correct strategy. If you ask several different, this is the quite famous, the Brunswick Future of Corporate Reputation paper. It's a paper in which they interviewed a lot of different C-levels, asking for different reputation questions. So you have a link there. And when you ask top managers about reputation, they tell you 75% how the company is perceived by stakeholder. A company perceived values or social purpose, 13%. Public and stakeholder trust in the company, 8%. Aggregative of current and past behavior or future intentions, 6%. Vital to business, 3%. Intangible asset, 3%. None of those definitions are intrinsically true or false. Okay? There is a part of truth in each and every single one. This is how the manager perceives them. How others talk about or view your company brand is how we talk about ourselves. Reputation is how others talk about us. Branding and marketing is what you tell other people about yourself. Reputation. Branding is the description into your Tinder profile or Grindr. No question asked. Reputation. Ho bisogno di una cavia. Fai la cavia. Sorry. Branding is my Tinder profile. Reputation is, after the first meeting within me and her, is what she tell you about me. Okay? It wasn't soliciting. I'm taken. You have to be quite attentive on that part. So, which of the following comes closest to the way of defining corporate? Expectations that are unique to your organization or a common set of attributes? This is quite important. When you talk about brand reputation, most of the time is a comparative index. It's not about a number of your organization and that's it. It's about how you stand between your markets. So it's not really about the best brand. It's about the best brand between the brands I know. It's a little bit better than other. It's not about being intrinsically good for the good or bad for the bad. It's about between a bunch of scoundrels, which is the less bastard of them all. Think about banks. Okay? Banks are bad. That's it. You will never find anyone telling you, I love my bank. Okay? I'm the fan of my bank. You will never see someone dressed with the logo of their bank. Okay? Banks are a necessary evil most of the time. Banks are necessary evil. So between the necessary evil the less evil is the best one. So think about reputation in a group of different brands, a group of different banks. And it's quite different. It's very hard to compare reputations of different brands. There are several studies, but it's incredibly hard to find out if Coca-Cola has a better reputation than Pfizer. Well, no, in this point of view, it's quite easy, but Coca-Cola has a better reputation than Nike, than always. It's quite difficult. There are some sort of standard metrics, and that is why Reputation Institute, you remember the Tanned fellow that was talking about reputations, okay? That is a tentative strive into dividing reputation in 7 different parts and mapping something that is comparable between different markets. But most of the time you're talking about reputation among your peers. When it comes to measuring reputation, having detail gauging of specific drivers, having metrics. Yeah, but most of people rely on metrics that are brand specific. Why? Because they are actionable. It's not about which metric is more important. My relative strength against is more important. My relative strength, the strength of my Tinder profile compared to his, okay, or not. Well, it is important if my is better than his, but it's quite more important the reputation analysis after having a lot of data about the first meeting we both have with someone else and getting back feedback. Why? Because I can act. If you give me feedback on his performance in a meeting, in a date, doesn't really help me so much. If you give me performance on my point of view on different girls, that is quite more important because I can use those metrics to affect my behavior and my point of view and my style and everything about me. Okay, sorry. It's quite easier when it was quite easier when I had my assistant during the lectures because she was the l'agnello sacrificale. She was the sacrificial lamb of all my part. So, in your organization, how important you think senior management believe corporate reputation to achieve? Important, yeah. Reputation is something that has to come from top management because it's a priority. If I'm their CEO and I'm quite more interested into short-term results, okay, and I don't give a shit about reputation, she can strive very hard to convince me, but I will be far more inclined on giving budget to marketing. If I have a long-lasting interest into the company, maybe the power trip within the organization is a little bit more on her side. So that is why, for example, there is a lot of difference in the way of dealing communication, branding, and marketing in family-owned businesses and in corporate CEOs. Corporate CEO, the CEO I acquire has a mission. 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and that's it. After 5 years, most of the time the CEO will change ship and go doing something else. If I'm the legacy owner, if I'm the family creating a brand, I've seen the brand evolving in the last 20 years. I want the brand to evolve in the next 20 years. So reputation will have a higher importance than short-term marketing strategies. Okay, there are several things that are quite easy to grasp, several others that are quite a little more difficult. Strong corporate reputation has the greatest influence on attracting and retaining employees. Reputation. Why are people talking a lot about their company policy, their being so attentive to climate change, on diversity, inclusion, etc., even if it's all bullshit. Why? Because if I want to attract new employees, women of talent, you will be far more inclined into meeting a company that match the sort of environment you want to work on. Again, that's just an assumption based on your perception. You will find reality. You find reality about reputation with the churn rate. So how many people I get and I lose. Not really on how many people I'm able to get on that point of view. But if I'm quite good into managing my reputation, I've got a strong woman leadership, we are quite conscious about environment because well, it's true, technically true that we kill penguin in the Arctic, but we plant a lot of different trees in Pavia, near the university. So you will find out a lot of trees with the badge, this was planted by my corporation. You don't give a shit about penguins, okay? So you will be most attracted in the perception that I'm close to you. In supporting a crisis, you are quite more well-versed to excuse a company that has a good reputation. If I've got a bad reputation, normally, I'm not talking about facts. I'm just talking about reputation overall. If something bad happens in Tesla, and if something bad happens in Fiat, you may be quite more eager to excuse one of those brands, not really based on what happened, but on your perceived quality. If you have a brand that is quite, if you have a love brand and a not loved brand, even if they are quite on the same spot, you are far more eager to take the position with the brand you love more. So in crisis, that is incredibly useful. Creating a good reputation is a good firewall on reputational crisis. If you take the young, beautiful, and competent woman as your CEO, and you have some sort of scandal doing with, I don't know, sexual harassment in the corporation, you are quite more well-versed to a company that has a female CEO, known female CEO, than a male known CEO. Even if they say the exact same statement, if they implement the exact same strategy, you will quite more well-versed into excusing a woman-led organization than a man-led organization in sexual harassment. It's a fact. There are a couple of papers demonstrating that. It's not just my bias. And driving sales. Grazie al cazzo. Good morning, Mr. La Palisse. Yeah, you're quite well. If you have a good brand with good reputation, you normally sell more. Employees work or recommend the work organization, stakeholder to support. Oh, stakeholder or consumer purchase on organization. That's it. So, a good reputation has the advantage to attract and retain talents, okay? Even retain. Because, you know, when you have a very high reputation of your employer, you're doing, again, a comparative choice between your employer and all the other ones. If you work in a very bad work environment, if you work in finance, you know that working in finance is stressful. Working in finance means a bad a bad work-life balance, etc. So even if you are not feeling so great, you may just think that this is the best choice you have within a bad environment. So even if your experience is sort of compromised by being there, the retention is higher nevertheless. Stakeholder support in, if you have a very good reputation with unions, for example, if you are quite good and you have a union problem, the union is more eager to take side on you if you have a good standing reputation with them. If you have some sort of oil spill in your municipality, but you have a very good behavior with very good reputation in your municipality, they are quite keen to think you will solve the problem. If you have a very bad reputation in your municipality, everyone will be against you, not for the incident itself, but for the overall sentiment that is already bad with you. Oh, couple of things not really as easy to understand. If you have a very good reputation, you are quite more able to charge a premium just based on reputation. Oh, but this product, this one is a good mascara, but this one isn't tested on animals, okay? Fun fact, no product is tested on animals in Europe, no one of them, okay? It's completely illegal and it has been for the last 10 years. So no product you can buy in Europe right now is tested on animals, no one of them. In Europe, I'm talking just about Europe. But some of the brands have a long communication, long reputation striving and stakeholder engagement on different associations to place themselves as non-animal testing. By the way, vegan and non-animal testing, every vegan every vegan product is it's the same, but you may perceive in different parts. So you are able to charge a premium for the fact, for the belief you are instilling in women that your product is not animal tested. These cost $2 more. Yeah, but it's not animal testing. Okay, so you are able to charge and quite important. Okay, I'm not even talking about customer preference. You prefer a brand that you have a high reputation to, okay? Grazie di nuovo. Let's call that the GAC moment, okay? From now on, it will be the GAC, stands for grazie al cazzo, thanks to the dick. But if someone approaches here and hear me say it's a GAC moment, I will seem a very smart people. If they hear me say grazie al cazzo, it's not the same. So we will use GAC. So the GAC moment here is customer preference, okay? There is another one that is incredibly important, especially in brands experiencing difficulties, that is the financial marketplace value. There are a bunch of studies explaining and demonstrating how a company that has a good reputation has an easier access on credit, has an easier access on money, has an easier access on investing and investors than a bad reputation one. And we are not really talking about real metrics. Maybe the bad company is a very good investment, okay? They sell weapons, okay? It's a very good, in this peculiar lifetime, making weapons is quite a good business. But a defense company And a striving cosmetics company that has a product that do not sell and will not sell will get easier advantage on the financial market than the other one. And it's not really based on metrics. There are a couple of other things. And we were talking about why online reputation next time, because it's 3 o'clock and you have to go away. Thank you so much. See you on Tuesday.